One morning in the curious village of Lululandia, Tung 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 Sakhur was awakened by a most unusual sound. It wasn't his usual alarm of yodeling frogs or the neighbor's goat playing kazoo. It was music. But not ordinary music. It was spaghetti music. From the kitchen, strands of pasta floated into the air and began playing invisible violins. Tung rubbed his eyes with a slice of toast and peeked out his window. The sky was raining parmesan. The birds were whistling the tune of O Sole Mio in reverse. Something was clearly wrong. He ran outside and found his friends in chaos. Bombardiro Crocodilo was tangled in linguini and shouting, "The noodles are sentient." Tralalelo Tralala was being chased by a flying meatball singing opera. Madame Cactus Creme was wearing a colander on her head like a helmet, holding a butter knife in defense. Then, with a thunderclap of tomato sauce, a swirling vortex opened in the middle of the town square. Out of it stepped Professor Olivier from Basement 13. He was dressed in a robe made of baked ziti and held a glowing silver fork. "I warned you all," he shouted. "You cooked the forbidden spaghetti sonata." "We didn't mean to," cried Tung. "We were just making lunch." "Exactly," said Professor Olivier. "That's how it begins." Suddenly, the spaghetti from the sky formed a tornado and sucked up Madame Cactus Creme. She vanished with a very elegant pirouette. Tung gasped. "Quick," he said. "We must perform the reverse lasagna chant." "But we need the legendary tomato of truth," said Bombardiro, still tangled. "No time to waste," said Tung, grabbing his garlic bread boots and a spaghetti lasso. Together, they marched into the forest of overcooked dreams. They crossed boiling rivers of minestrone, faced wild beasts made of uncooked rigatoni, and finally reached the temple of Tupperware, where the tomato of truth sat atop a golden plate. The tomato looked up and spoke. "Y'all need to chill? Too much oregano next time." With the help of the tomato, they performed the reverse lasagna chant. The vortex collapsed. Spaghetti vanished. The sky returned to normal. Madame Cactus Creme descended from the clouds, perfectly al dente. Everyone cheered. "Next time," said Tung, "let's just order takeout." The end, or is it? It had been 3 calm days in Lululandia. The spaghetti sky had cleared, the rivers of minestrone were back to lukewarm soup, and Madame Cactus Creme had taken up interpretive dance to express her trauma. All was peaceful until the cheese started screaming. At first, it was a soft squeak, then louder, then full-blown yodels. Tung 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 Sakhur was brushing his teeth with lemon custard when he heard the first scream from the refrigerator. "Moo, za'a, reli will rees." He spat out his toothpaste. Not again. He ran outside and found Bombardiro Crocodilo hiding in a giant fondue pot. "She's returned," whispered Bombardiro. "Mozzarella Anarchy, the lactose queen of chaos." Tralalelo Tralala skidded in on a wheel of brie. "She's building a cheese citadel behind the dairy dunes," he said, panting. "And she's recruited the blue vein ninjas." The ground trembled. The trees dripped with melted gouty, and from the hills came an avalanche of camembert. Tung squinted toward the horizon, and there she was, floating in midair on a throne of crackers, Mozzarella Anarchy. Her hair was braided mozzarella sticks. Her eyes sparkled with pure ricotta fury. "I will shred the world like cheddar," she shouted, "and melt your dreams with my bubbling wrath." Madame Cactus Creme, still in dance mode, pirouetted and declared, "Only the sacred dairy bell can stop her." But it was lost in the yogurt rebellion of 1983, said Bombardiro. "Then we must travel," said Tung, to the forbidden fridge of forgotten snacks. They took the whisker bus, a giant, semi-sentient transport made entirely of whiskers and whipped cream, and sped across the landscape. They passed the popcorn volcanoes, the land of sour croutons, and the ranch dressing rapids. Inside the forbidden fridge, guarded by a grumpy pickle named Harold, they found the sacred dairy bell, crusty, noble, and slightly moldy. With the bell in hand, Tung and his crew returned to the cheese citadel. Mozzarella Anarchy was already mid-solo in her operatic cheese hymn. Tung raised the bell. "Enough!" he cried. "Let dairy be delicious, not dangerous." He rang the bell. A pure note echoed across the land. Mozzarella Anarchy paused, dropped her crackers, and blinked. Then she began to cry, tears of warm queso fresco. "I just wanted to be on a pizza," she whispered. "We all do," said Tralalelo, hugging her gently. Peace returned once more. The cheese citadel melted into fondue fountains, and Mozzarella Anarchy opened a mozzarella yoga studio. Tung Tung Sakhur looked at his friends and said, "Next week, let's just make salad." To be continued in The Rise of the Cereal Syndicate. It started subtly. A cornflake in the mailbox, a puffed rice sphere rolling across the street. But by Wednesday, it was clear. Breakfast had declared war. Tung Tung Sakhur awoke to the sound of snapping. Not twigs, not fingers, but snap, crackle, and pop, marching in perfect rhythm outside his window. He opened the curtains and gasped. An army of cereals stretched across the horizon. There were battalions of brand commandos, militias of marshmallow mutants, and the feared General Oatblast riding atop a giant toasted wheat square, wielding a spoon like a battle axe. Bombardiro Crocodilo burst into the room, wearing a helmet made from a cereal bowl and holding a shield made of banana slices. "They've taken over the pantry provinces," he cried. "Even the milk lakes are turning to yogurt." Madame Cactus Creme, now a certified dairy therapist, somersaulted in. "They're powered by added sugar," she whispered. "Their energy is off the charts." Tralalelo Tralala had been missing for hours. When he finally arrived, he was tied to a giant spoon and covered in honey clusters. "They've developed a weapon," he wheezed. "They call it the Crunchifier." Tung nodded gravely. "Then we need the only thing that can counter breakfast tyranny." Bombardiro gasped. "You don't mean—" "Yes," said Tung, "the sacred bacon scroll." They traveled through the toasted wastelands, narrowly escaping flying toasters and syrup swamps, until they reached at the Temple of Brunch. Guarded by ancient waffle monks, the sacred bacon scroll was hidden beneath a stack of eternal pancakes. With scroll in hand, they returned to face the cereal syndicate. The battlefield was a dining table the size of a continent. The spoon swords clanged, milk splashed, raisins flew like bullets. Tung unrolled the sacred bacon scroll and read its crispy, sizzling wisdom aloud. "Let balance rule the breakfast plate." A glowing egg hovered above them. The milk turned calm. The cereal softened. General Oatblast dropped his spoon. "Maybe we could coexist," he said. "With toast?" Everyone gasped. Tung smiled. "Yes, with toast and maybe some fruit." And so, breakfast found harmony. Mozzarella Anarchy opened a cheese and oat fusion cafe. Tralalelo founded the Intermeal Peace Council. Bombardiro began sculpting butter. Tung Tung Sakhur looked to the skies and whispered, "Let lunch never rise in rage." To be continued in Attack of the Angry Avocados, in the depths of the freezer mountains, where the frost never thawed and the peas screamed softly at night. The ancient sarcophagus of the ice cream pharaoh cracked open with a sticky sigh. He rose, a towering swirl of vanilla and menace, draped in chocolate robes and crowned with a cherry that pulsed with forbidden syrup. His voice echoed like a popsicle dropped on marble. I am Smootep, pharaoh of frozen treats. The time of melt has come. News of his awakening sent a chill across Lululandia. Milk rivers turned to ice. Popsicles began to whisper treason in vending machines. The great gelato geyser erupted, flooding Caramel Canyon. Smootep was reclaiming his empire. Tung 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 Sakhur, now general of the Breakfast Accord, summoned the full force of Brunchkind. We must act before he scoops the sun from the sky, he said, wielding his legendary spatula of hope. Bombardiro Crocodilo arrived in a banana split tank. Tralalelo Tralala brought the spoonmobile. Madame Cactus Creme had engineered a sorbet cannon that froze anything with a single shot, and then gently garnished it. Their mission? Infiltrate the ice cream pyramid and hit the pharaoh with the one thing he feared most: heat. The final battle took place at dawn. As the sun rose, Tung activated the pancake mirror array, bouncing golden rays through syrup lenses. Beams of warmth struck Smootep. He howled as his fudge limbs began to drip. "You cannot melt royalty," he screamed. But Lady Lingonberry whispered, "All dessert expires eventually." With a last echoing gurgle, the pharaoh dissolved into a puddle of bittersweet nostalgia. The land thawed. The skies cleared. The cereal and fruit armies embraced. A giant sundae was constructed to commemorate the battle, but no one dared take a bite. It stood as a reminder. Peace is sweet, but fragile. Tung looked to the horizon. "If evil ever rises again," he said, "we'll be ready, with breakfast, lunch, and dinner united." And so ended the battle of the sweetest empire. Or did it? Far below, in the ancient butter vault, a stick twitched. To be continued.